folks, coming up at Roland Martin Unfiltered for Friday, March 8th, 2019. Breaking news. Jussie Smollett indicted 16 felony counts in Chicago as a result, filing false reporting of a hate crime. We'll break it down. Also, breaking news out of Atlanta in a federal courtroom. Esteemed attorney Donald Watkins Sr. and his son, Donald Watkins Jr. The verdict just came in, found guilty on all counts of mail fraud, wire fraud. We'll have a breakdown of that case as well. Speaking of another case, Paul Manafort, talk about absolute white privilege. How in the hell can you defraud the federal government of millions of dollars, lie to prosecutors after you cut a deal and a federal judge gives you 47 months in prison? The same white federal judge who put former Congressman Jefferson of New Orleans in jail for 13 years and tried to put him on a chain gang. Yeah, we'll break down that white privilege. Also in the House, they passed a landmark voting rights and ethics and anti-corruption bill. But the question is, will Mitch McConnell take it up in the Senate? Black unemployment. Donald Trump loved talking about how he helps the blacks. So why has black unemployment gone up for the last 4 months? What we got to lose, Donald? Also, police crack down hard on folks protesting the decision not to charge the cops who killed Stephon Clark in Sacramento. 84 people have been arrested, including several pastors. The protests have been taking place in City Hall, in white neighborhoods, all of that. Plus, folks, a powerful documentary series called Finding Justice. Co-founders of Black Lives Matter, Patrisse Cullors, who is featured in this series, will join us live. Folks, it's a jam-packed show. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
All right, folks, breaking news out of Chicago. Empire actor Jussie Smollett has been charged, first of all, indicted 16 felony counts by a Cook County grand jury. Again, those felony counts deal with reporting a false hate crime. Also, false report of offense, class 4 felonies. They say Jussie Smollett knew that at the time there was no reasonable ground for believing that such offenses had been committed, according to the indictment. Also, keep in mind that he also was lying to Chicago police when they kept doing the various interviews. Smollett has consistently said that he is innocent, that he did not actually make this up. Remember, this now just coming down out of Chicago, 16 felony counts against Jussie Smollett. I want to go right now to Scott Bolden, one of the attorneys here often on our show. Scott, first of all, from a legal standpoint, you keep saying I'm not guilty. I'm not guilty. 16 felony counts? It's a different conversation.
Well, it's an indictment, and it is serious, but he was indicted for literally every fact that he told the police that was a lie. As I said on the show a few weeks ago, you know, there's one thing you don't do with the Chicago Police Department, any police department. You don't run, but you don't lie, and if you get caught lying to them, all right, then they're going to bring the hammer. Now, watch for their lawyers to challenge these 16 counts, because it really is, they break it down, each bad act, and they indict him for disorderly conduct, felony class 4, for each act, each statement he makes. And I'm not so sure that's legal under Illinois law. If it's just one ongoing action of facts, then they may be able to bring it back down to 1 or 2 counts.
Tina Goss-Graves, President and CEO, National Women's Law Center. What you also have here is a black DA, a black female DA. Now, what's happened in the past, folks like, oh, racist police department, white prosecutor. Kind of hard to do that when the superintendent of the police department is black and the DA is black.
I have a lot of respect for Kim Foxx, the DA in Chicago, but I do have a bit of a concern here with a rise in hate crimes. The speed in which you have seen action on Jussie Smollett has been dramatic when you compare to the typical response to hate crimes, to homophobia, to misogyny, to the sorts of things that are actually terrifying a lot of communities.
But don't you think this is different, though? I mean, look at what Jussie did. Jussie created this criminal narrative. He hired people. He lied to the police. He's a high-profile actor. This was covered nationally, internationally, and the police put a lot of resources on it for all of those reasons, right? And as it turns out, the people he hired flipped on him, and they used the same information against him that he was trying to use against them. I'd say the resources, I'd say the criminal intent, and I would say that Smollett and what he did to put all of us behind this kind of race and homophobia piece, the damage he did, is more than worth those indictments. The question is, can those indictments last?
Well, Fatima, here's the other deal. The reality is this here. If any case involving an actor, okay, this is a high-profile person. This is not a traditional deal. So the level of attention the Chicago police put into it, also because you have the star.
There's a question about that, whether they should have put that level of attention, sort of celebrity coverage.
But here's the piece, though. Here's the piece, Joseph. Had they not done it,
it would have been a whole different conversation.
Whole different conversation. And so the reality is, people who are high profile, entertainers, sports figures, you're going to see a different type of law enforcement focus, especially where it took place. He lives in the Gold Coast, okay? This did not happen in Bronzeville. This did not happen on the West Side.
Right.
It happened in the Gold Coast. And look, I spent 6 years in Chicago. Joseph, they treat the Gold Coast a lot different, and it's called the Gold Coast for a reason.
Absolutely. It's called the Gold Coast for a reason. They get more resources, they get more attention. And furthermore, you're talking about Chicago Police Department that is operating in the wake of the Laquan McDonald scandal, that is operating in the wake of having a secret cabal where they would take criminal suspects and torture them, actually. So Chicago had to really go all out on this one, and it just so turned out that it was not the right case to do that, or perhaps it was, depending on your perspective.
Well,
How
in
soon?
a different city. He should have done it in a different city.
How soon do you think we'll be hearing conversations about plea deal?
Well, I think he's got to be arraigned on these charges. I think it's going to be next week. There'll certainly be motions filed because of the way they charge this. By the way, Roland, I don't care whether you're black, white, yellow, brown as a prosecutor. The argument that it's overcharged is one thing, but it certainly isn't undercharged. But it doesn't matter who the prosecutor is.
Got it.
This was going to get done.
All right, let's talk about this second breaking news story, folks, out of Atlanta. Prominent attorney Donald Watkins, Sr., his son, Donald Watkins, Jr., both found guilty in federal court on charges of wire fraud. All counts. Now, go to my iPad, Henry. This is AL.com. Donald Watkins, prominent attorney in Alabama, now living in Atlanta. Prominent family. Dad was a longtime president, Alabama State University. His brother, Dr. Levi Watkins, historic surgeon at Johns Hopkins University, and both of them in this trial took place over 3 weeks. They pretty much built athletes and others out of millions of dollars. Charles Barkley said they built him out of $6.15 million. Donald Watkins Sr. is 70. His son, Donald Watkins Jr., is 46. They both represented themselves during this trial, which included testimony from Condoleezza Rice, as well as Martin Luther King III. They were put on the stand because they had evidence, the feds did, showing that Watkins was telling people that these two were going to join his board of directors. They said, absolutely not true. There were other athletes involved in this where they took money from $1 million from several different athletes as well. And what they were basically saying is that Donald Watkins Sr. was telling people that he owned 50% of this company, Masada, when in fact, he didn't. The company, the folks still owned it. He was simply managing their portion. Feds say he used this money, several $1 million, for personal expenses, such as alimony, to pay his taxes, gym workouts, billboards, things along those lines. And it's, of course, a stunning downfall for Donald Watkins Sr. because he made his bones in Alabama representing a major healthcare CEO. folks in of course, legal circles knew very well about Donald Watkins. Folks, let me know if we have Roy Johnson from AL.com, who, of course, has been covering this as well. Again, I want to go to Fatima and Scott first. National Bar Association folks know Donald Watkins very well. To hear this prominent attorney, 70 years old, black attorney who a lot of black folks really looked up to, and of course he goes into the Alpha Hall of Shame now because he's an alpha. He's an alpha.
Oh my goodness!
But Scott, I don't know if you want to talk about that,
no,
especially
really
with the person who took a million from your fraternity. Yeah, you want to be quiet.
Cleaning ours up.
So yeah, right. So Fatima, again, black lawyers certainly to see him go down.
Yeah, no, it's a sad day to see this. It's also hard to think about the harm that was put on our community, our institutions. So you want to see some justice come from that, but it's a sad day.
Yeah, just a really giant in all circles, an awesome lawyer who just happened to be African American. The reality is, though, they represented themselves, and as a former prosecutor, this is what we call an in and out case. The money going in, how's it coming out? What's your story? And by the way, how you living? What's your lifestyle and how you financing that lifestyle? It's a paper case. It can be boring to the jury, but not to the lawyers. And in the end, they put a piece of paper, those papers together to tell a story that the jury bought. All counts, by the way. I don't know what their defense was because I wasn't following it too closely.
Their defense was essentially they had the right to use funds that they raised any way they wanted to. I was following this. When you looked at the emails, when you looked at the statements, when you looked at all of those things, they had no case. I mean, they had them flat out busted. Right. Because first, they suggested that they own this 50% of this company called Masada. The owners of the company said, no, we hired him to manage our 50%, not he owned the company. They had emails literally saying where he was saying that they were investing in his company. No, that wasn't happening. I mean, it was unbelievable where they were showing, and it was documentation where his girlfriend, $600,000 went to her. They had people who were staying at her place instead of staying in hotels. I mean, it was all kind of stuff. And really, what this showed, Joseph, is that here's a guy that one time was talking about buying the St. Louis Rams, buying a Major League Baseball team, who frankly had a house of cards that just fell, who was not the rich person he set him up to be. And it showed he even ensnared Richard Arrington, who he represented, who testified Watkins could no longer get loans from the bank that he started. Arrington got loans from the bank for him and he never paid it back, and the government gave Arrington immunity. He pulled in people who trusted him. Charles Barkley said, I didn't even read the documents. He was my friend. I absolutely trusted him. $6.15 million for Charles.
It's a setback. I mean, as Fatima said, it's a setback for the community. It's a setback for the Watkins, certainly. And it's going to make people that much harder to trust a black attorney or a black sports agent. So the ripple effect is going to be significant here. But the other thing that I wanted to point out to your point, to Scott's point, is anytime, I used to cover courts, so anytime a client represents himself, the adage was they've got a fool for a client.
That's a long time.
and if they had them as dead to rights as Roland says they did, then certainly it probably would have been wise for them to have somebody else represent them, cop a plea, and do the best you can.
Well, that's a good segue, because now what you got to look at, Roland, is the federal sentencing guidelines.
Absolutely.
Even if it's a state case, I think it's a federal case though.
It's federal.
It's a federal case, so you got the federal sentencing guidelines, right? The direct tie into the federal sentencing guidelines is beyond acceptance of responsibility. How much did you steal, right? And the witness's victim impact statement.
Yep.
And the amount of money that they're talking about these two individuals stole, the numbers in regard to the amounts of incarceration.
Upwards of $10 million.
Right. You could get into the 10 to 20 year sentencing range without upwardly or downwardly departing. Look for the judge to do that, and look for them to really make a case for why there should be some leniency, which I don't see how you do that.
Well, the other quick thing to mention, if you're talking about sentencing guidelines, Scott, is look how this stacks up to the Manafort case. We've been talking about before. You have a black attorney, significant, stole a huge amount of money. We already have 13 counts. Is he going to bring the hammer down and sentence to 20 years? Compare and contrast to what Paul Manafort is going to be facing.
Certainly will.
Fatima, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking
1 second,
about,
I'm going to get the Manafort in a second.
I actually think it also connects to the conversation we just had about Jussie Smollett, right? Manafort, we're talking about a threat to our democracy. We're talking about something that
Hold
is
on, I'm going to get to that one in a
affecting
second.
every
Let's
person.
finish Watkins. I'm going to get to that in a second. Let's finish Watkins.
So for Watkins to be talking about 20 years by comparison, I mean, I think that this is why people do not have trust in the justice system altogether.
And again, first of all, the sentencing will take place July 16th in the Watkins case. And so Donald Watkins Sr. is one who is, let's just say, he is very talkative. He certainly loves media, has his own blog. So I can't wait to hear what his reaction to this guilty decision is. All right, let's go to the epitome of white privilege. This, y'all got his photo, please? Y'all got the photo of the white man? Really? We'll go to it. Go pull up the photo. If y'all want to know white privilege, if you want to look at white privilege, forget the dictionary. The photo of Paul Manafort is absolutely, positively white privilege. Pull it up, folks. This right here, that's white privilege. You're talking about a person who lied to prosecutors after he cut a deal. A guy who took millions, did not report it, who did not pay taxes on the money, who fled numerous felonies, and a federal judge sentences him to 47 months in prison and talks about how he pretty much led exemplary life up until this point. U.S. District Judge T.S. Ellis III, okay? Talk about departing. He could have faced up to 24 years in prison. Ellis said, the hell with that, dropped it to 47 months. Reporters who were in the courtroom said Ellis, from the beginning, had disdain for the special prosecutor, okay? Disdain for the federal prosecutor. This is what he said. This man worked to keep arms flowing to the Angolan general there, okay? Everybody who knows Manafort, he represented numerous dictators all across the globe. Also, bankroll the apartheid government in South Africa, the person we were just talking about. Manafort also worked with this so-called anti-communist freedom fighter, this guy planted millions of landmines in peasant fields, resulting in 15,000 amputees. Now, again, tax evasion. I bet Wesley Snipes is going, damn, just 47 months? Rather than paying his fair share to help fund national defense and public health, well, guess what? Manafort kept his cash in Cyprus, wired it to his home, about more than $1 million in clothing. Talk about an absolute corrupt individual, 47 months. Now, let's talk about Crystal Mason. This is the woman, of course, this talk about Crystal Mason, because here's what's interesting. All across social media yesterday, folks in the control room, chill, I got it. All the folks in social media, the moment Manafort was sentenced, Crystal Mason was trending on Twitter for hours yesterday. Black woman who accidentally voted gets sentenced to 5 years because she violated. 5 years. That's how nuts it is. People all across, black folks, white folks, talking about Crystal Mason. Senator Cory Booker, this is what he said on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, reacting to the verdict.
Because this news came out about Paul Manafort, and I'm really ticked off about this. One of my friends says that we have a criminal justice system that treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. And there are people from neighborhoods like mine in America who get convictions for doing things that 2 of the last 3 presidents admitted to doing. We are a nation right now that churns into our criminal justice system the most vulnerable people. In our country, we prey upon the most vulnerable citizens in our nation. Poor folks, mentally ill folks, addicted folks, and overwhelmingly black and brown folks.
Were you shocked that he only got 47
No,
months?
this criminal justice system can't surprise me anymore.
Now, Booker's talking about Vincent Winslow, a black man, homeless, hungry, agreed to sell pot to a stranger, who turned out to be an undercover cop. He had 2 trials for nonviolent felonies, life in prison. We covered this story a lot. Khalif Browder, accused of stealing a backpack, accused, who never even went to trial. 3 years in Rikers Island. When he finally got out, committed suicide. 2 years of that was in solitary confinement. Talk about absolutely ridiculous. If you want to understand 2 criminal justice systems, this is it. For Paul Manafort to get 47 months in prison. I saw a tweet from Eric Holder, former Attorney General. He said it should have been 7 to 8. He said, as a former prosecutor, he said we should not be just throwing folks in jail for long terms. He said, but to go from 24 months to 47, he said it's absolutely crazy. Now, many African Americans have been talking about, again, the different sentences that are often given to African Americans who have committed crimes. Earlier, I told you about William Jefferson, the congressman from New Orleans. I spoke about him earlier, who they found $90,000 in cash in his freezer. The same judge threw him in jail for 13 years. And in fact, the original sentence actually was longer than that, and it was lowered upon appeal. Folks in Detroit right now are talking about former Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, who got the maximum, 28 years for fraud and bribery. The gentleman who was his cohort in that, he got 21 years. Larry Langford, who was the mayor in Birmingham, county commissioner, also got thrown in prison for double-digit years as well. So going to our panel here, the question we have to deal with is, and it's also just amazing to see how all of a sudden white folks have just realized after Manafort Joseph gets 47 months, oh my God, this just isn't fair about this system.
This system, oh my God, this system is screwed up.
And black folks like, hashtag, we tried to tell you.
We've been trying to tell you for years and years and years. Well, I mean, obviously, this is the most blatant example, and it's only one of many examples that people can point to. This is the one that white America mostly, for the most part, was paying attention to, because you had a guy who was accused of cohorting with Donald Trump, was accused of consorting with dictators and so forth.
But no collusion. No collusion.
I mean, but the collusion was not a factor in this case.
It
Tax
wasn't a
evasion
factor
for
at all.
10 years. Tax evasion for 10
Right.
years. I mean, we're not even talking about what you know, the initial fraud case that we're talking about, where you're defrauding professional athletes for a short period of time with still a grand amount of money. Both are scoundrels. Both deserve to be punished. Why is one not being punished as harshly as the other?
But guys, let's be real clear now. I'm on board with the injustices and the inequities, right? But let's punctuate it with something. Every case is different. Every court is different. You got state court, federal court, you got different judges. It's not one judge, if you will, which is why we got the federal sentencing guidelines. It's not one judge who is making these determinations. So, you know, from a legal standpoint, we have to be careful about that. The injustices still exist. Remember one thing about the Manafort case, though, that I thought was powerful and telling. The government agreed to take no position on his sentencing despite the sentencing guidelines. So the prosecutors didn't stand up and own and tell the judge what amount of time they were asking for, which is usually unheard of unless there's a deal cut between both sides. They cut that deal, and with Ellis, who's a Reagan appointee, I've appeared before Ellis a handful of times over my legal career, as well as Amy Berman Jackson, that he's going to face next week, and they're two very different judges. But at the beginning, when he talked about no collusion, as a conservative and a Republican, that was a lead-in to how he felt about the case. And remember, 6 months ago, a year ago, he hated this case.
Yeah.
He blasted the prosecutors in preliminary motions about it, saying they really wanted Trump, but not him. He's free to say that, but that gave you a roadmap on where his head was, which is why the government should have stood up and said, we want 24 years, whatever is called for under the federal sentencing guidelines.
I got Teresa Lundy, founder of TML Communications via Skype. And so let me bring in Teresa. Teresa, again, when you look at this social media reaction, black folks are saying, we tried to tell you. We knew there was this different system. And you have Rudy Giuliani, hey, what's the big deal? It's white-collar crime. This is the fundamental problem that we keep seeing in this system. Guys like Manafort, oh, it's white-collar crime. It's no big deal. It's tax evasion. You know, yeah, he lied. But those are all BS excuses.
Absolutely. So, again, the epidemic of what's going on right now is the same thing that's been going on in America for thousands of years, well, hundreds of years. And so when we look at what absolute justice actually is supposed to look like, I think we need to start looking at what the sentencing guidelines are looking like for those in the judicial court system. Because if we take a look at what some of those guidelines are, and if we started to reform and to amend some of those changes, then I think we would start to expand our reach as what it looks like for some of those best practice sentencing for white collar or criminal proceedings.
Go ahead, Fatima.
Well, I'm still struck by the fact that Crystal Manning is not a threat to our democracy. What she did by accidentally voting and not understanding that she wasn't supposed to vote does not jeopardize our country in that way. And the fact that at the same time we can compare these two sentences, I agree that, but judges have a lot of discretion. And
but the federal sentencing guidelines were supposed to bring some uniformity to some of these sentences.
But I think it's highlighting the fact that you can depart,
There you
and
go.
that happens. And the privilege of being able to get that sort of departure when many other people do not get that sort of departure, I think is worth having a broader conversation.
And it is tied to the type of crime and the type of person. To hear this judge, well, the kind of life that you lived before, essentially, you're not a bad guy. You pretty much lived a really, really, really good life. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I can show you some black folks
Who was the
who
victim
never got. No, 1 second.
was the victim?
Wait a minute, hold up, I'm not done. This is also, hold up, I'm not done. This is also a guy who walked in, who showed no remorse, who essentially said, I'm the damn victim. I mean, normally when you get in sentenced, they tell you, and look, you need to go in, you need to show some remorse, you need to go ahead. Now look, don't go in there cocky, arrogant.
know that.
The judge, I'm sorry, I apologize, what happened, I hurt the people. He walked in, that's bullshit. Look, damn it, I'm the victim. I don't know why in the hell I'm here. Talk about, Teresa, the height of arrogance.
Absolutely. And actually what you were describing is participatory defense. So with criminal defense, participatory defense is pretty much that, as in the defense attorney will bring a slew of materials about who that person is. So when it comes to the judge, they start to actually see who that person is, as in their character, and then they start to, render a verdict.
These cats didn't waste their time.
They did.
They were like, look, I got a white man next to me. Judge, what up? And Judge like, you right, 47 months.
He owed $25 million in black taxes, or he stole it, what have you.
And hold up. And after
million.
cutting a deal
Exactly.
with the prosecutors, kept lying.
When I was in D.C., but remember, at sentencing, the judge can take any and everything
That's my
into
point.
consideration.
He's going to get sentenced in D.C. March 13th. But the fact that the guy you say who kept lying, so it's not like I lied before y'all busted me.
I ain't gonna lie.
I got busted and my ass kept lying.
He was in it.
And the judge found that he had lied. Judge Jackson found that he had lied. It wasn't an accusation. She made a finding in an order that he had lied.
Well, which is... I think-
Must be nice to be white.
I actually think that's going to come up next week.
I guarantee
she's
you.
going
I sure hope so.
She's going to put the burden on.
I
But
have
one other quick point to make
Is
is...
she going to hire 10 years next week?
The question isn't if she's going to do it. Is she going to do it consecutively or concurrently with this 4-year sentence?
Which one do we want?
consecutive.
Well, we...
Consecutively.
Consecutively.
Hold up, I ain't talking to
Gotta
bougie.
remember-
Which one we
No,
want,
listen
Joseph?
to me. Yes.
You want
that. Hold on.
We want
Let me get another
consecutive. I know.
Listen, this is a real consideration. Given his age, if she runs it 10 years plus that 4, and by the way, on good behavior, he's going to get out in 2022, okay? His age becomes a factor. Is she giving him a life sentence or not? And that's a real factor
All
of
right.
the federal sentencing guidelines.
Well, guess what? Shouldn't have stole the money. Shouldn't have lied. You shouldn't have represented all them.
Have you no sympathy?
No, none.
Have you no
none.
decency?
None.
To put a man
No,
in jail
no.
for the rest
I'm
of his
sounding
life?
just like white people. No, none.
To the
Going-
listening public,
going none.
I'm just being difficult
None.
here. I want him to
None.
get as long as possible.
There's a moment you want to be white. This is the moment. No sympathy. Going to a break. I'll be back on the field in just a moment. None.
That ain't right.
Everyone has a gift. You let it take you as far as it can. Basketball star Lynette Woodard.
All right, folks. HBCU Thanksgiving Day. Our school is Lemoyne Owen College. They're located in Memphis, Tennessee, founded in 1968. Shout out to Lemoyne. I got a honorary degree from Lemoyne. I spoke at their commencement. Notable graduates include W.W. Harrington, Benjamin Hooks, Marion Berry, Gilbert E. Patterson, Larry Miller, and others. To support Lemoyne Owen, please go to loc.edu, loc.edu. All right, folks, calling all HBCU alumni, students, and leaders. Enter the Ford Motor Company HBC-You Mobility Challenge and win $25,000 for your school. Building on their long-term support of HBCUs, Ford is looking to improve mobility in HBCU communities through innovative solutions. The winning program will receive a grant of up to $25,000 to implement the proposal. The deadline to apply is March 31st, 2019. Go to FGB.Life. That's FGB.Life for more info and to apply. Ford goes further in our community. All right, folks, let's talk politics here, and that is the House passed H.R. 1. And that is a bill dealing with democracy reform, the first time in a very, very long time. What does it include? Automatic voter registration, nationwide early voting, public financing of elections, into congressional gerrymandering, and the release of Donald Trump's taxes. Now, Republicans in the Senate are already saying they're going to oppose this. Mitch McConnell says he's not even going to bring it up. Teresa, there's a reason Democrats wanted this to be the first bill that they pass in control of the House.
It's full transparency. We already went through the first 4 years of not seeing Donald Trump tax returns. We went through 4 years of voter suppression in some states. And so as it comes up on the next term, if he's elected or if he's defeated, transparency is going to be at the utmost of the conversation that everybody's going to be talking about. And Maxine Waters will be delivering on her promise that she stated earlier.
Joseph, when you look at this particular bill here, Republicans are already saying, oh, how dare we have, taxpayer finance congressional races. They're saying that you're taking powers away from the state. I saw one statement from a member of Congress who was from Tennessee, where their Secretary of State is already saying, absolutely, we're going to oppose this. And so now it's states' rights, states' rights, states' rights. We control voting. What are you doing?
Well, it's an echo back to an earlier time where states' rights meant, was not even code word for, trying to restrict the vote from African Americans. And certainly in this case, it looks like the Republicans are fighting this so much because they're losing in the marketplace of ideas. I mean, basically, a lot of what they're proposing as a legislative body is not really that popular with the people, and the Democrats are outvoting. And certainly in the midterms election, you had a record turnout in Barack Obama's 2 years. Same thing. Hillary Clinton brought the vote but did not win. So they're seeing the handwriting on the wall. And if you're not certain that you're going to win the game, you try to rig the rules. And also,
Fatima, look, here's the thing that you have to also look at. So someone sent me earlier, they said, I don't understand why the Voting Rights Act wasn't in this. Here's why I think so. I think it wasn't in here because by separating the two, okay, Republicans could easily say, you know what, okay, I'm cool with these two, but I don't like these three. So Congresswoman Terry Sills introduced H.R. 4. And I think by separating with the VRA, you're going to force Republicans to be on the record, am I going to vote specifically against fixing the VRA? When they had the news conference announcing it, it passed 98-0 in the Senate. George W. Bush was president, signed it into law. I think Democrats wouldn't be able to compare, okay, here are all these Republicans who were here, who voted for it, who would now oppose it. So I think that's why they separated those two.
They're each also worthy of their own separate and deep conversation. What's happening with our democracy right now is core and it's fundamental. And when we talk about the states complaining that they don't have the power is going back to the people to be able to vote and see the type of people who represent them. And we've seen with this new Congress what it can look like when you have a more diverse Congress, when you have the largest number of women in history, and we have the largest number of black women serving in history. It's International Women's Day, so I feel like it should bring.
I understand. I got you. I saw you work that thing in. but Teresa, here again, McConnell is not going to bring it up, and I think what you have here are Democrats knowing that, and what they're doing is they're setting the stage to be able to run ads during the election in 2020, saying they voted against automatic voter registration, they voted against this, they voted against this, and that's what they're setting up.
good, and they should be setting those type of platforms up and those type of messages up immediately. Because again, the base is still trying to figure out, and I'm talking about some of the millennial bases and some of the young professional bases are trying to figure out what to do next and who to follow. And nobody's catching their attention right now. So it's really going to take, not only this bill, but a lot more engagement in order to really try to craft what that looks like and make it a power pack fit in order to get some of those voters out.
All right, then, folks, let's go to our next story. Donald Trump, he's in Alabama signing folks' Bibles. He went down there to survey the wreckage that left 23 folks dead via tornadoes. Literally, people were asking him to sign their Bibles. But here's what you did not hear Donald Trump talk about when he left the White House. He wasn't touting today's job reports. Now, every month, the first Friday, you all of a sudden see Republicans out talking about all the jobs we created and how everything is great. You see people like conservative white guy Charlie Kirk talking about how Trump has helped all of the blacks. Look at the low black unemployment report. Except that today's jobs report showed 20,000 new jobs were created. Okay, yeah, 300,000 in January. Now, they love talking about black people and unemployment, but here's the issue, though. Black unemployment went up again. Black unemployment has actually gone up 4 times. November, December, January, and now February. So if you look at the chart, black and white unemployment from November 2018 to February 2019, you see it was 6% in November. Now it is 7% in February. So the question is, Fatima, are white Republicans going to be now talking about this? Because remember, it was all about, oh, how low it is, the lowest in history. It's us, it's us, it's us. Now it's up.
Listen, they should be talking about it because an early indicator of what's going to happen for the rest of this country is what's happening with the black community. So as we're seeing a creep up with the unemployment rate for black men, black women not gaining jobs in the way that you would have wanted to see, if you are concerned about unemployment for everyone, you have to focus on what's happening with the black community. The other thing is, I understand there has been this rejoicing of black unemployment by them, but we have never seen black unemployment below 4%.
Yes.
So there has always been a giant disparity that has gone unaddressed.
And that's what they do not want to talk about, and it's no shock because then you actually have to address something specifically that deals with black people. So, but I'm just still going to wait for the Donald Trump tweet of how he's helped the blacks. Okay, speaking of helping the blacks, will you hear Donald Trump talking about what happened to Stephon Clark in Sacramento? Hell no. Of course, 2 officers, the DA there decided they were not going to file charges against those 2 cops. Ever since, folks, that decision came down over the weekend. Ever since, you've had massive protests all across Sacramento in white neighborhoods and city council. This was last night in the Sacramento City Council where things got a little heated with black protesters. But here's the deal. But watch how the cops also treat them. Roll, please. Roll, please. Now, folks, this is, of course, video again showing a protest in a white neighborhood. And, folks are like, okay, you see how many cops are out there? That's a hell of a whole lot of cops for not really a lot of people. Now, check this out. Last night, of course, they were at the city council. Go to my iPad, please. This is the video here at the city council. Now, I want to show you something. Now, I want you to watch. He's black. Watch the cops respond, but watch how they back off when the people who are not black come around him. Do you see how it changes? Now, I have never seen white cops not jump in and snatch folks and arrest them, Joseph, but they would have had to go through white and Asian protectors.
Not only that, but you saw the white woman jumped up on the podium. They snatched the black brother off, left her alone, and all their attention was on him and not her. I mean, it's emblematic of what we've seen across.
One's a hell of a strategy, by the way.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's really good.
It's smart. It's allyship too. That's smart.
Well, and also, in Sacramento, we've had these problems for years. I mean, it's nothing new. And, you know, to see that you have white people come in, it just creates such a stark image where they're going to go after the black people but leave the white people alone. Yeah. Also, I think it's an interesting strategy for them to go protest in white neighborhoods, shut down a Tony shopping mall, and try to bring this fight to their doorstep.
Teresa, the protests continue. You have people who are again demanding justice. 84 folks have been arrested, pastors arrested. They even detained reporters as well. And so I've got emails from people, I've gotten tweets from people, and one person hit me on Instagram saying, you know, what do we do? And this is where, if you do not take this anger and channel this into voter mobilization and activation to elect a new DA, to elect new city leaders, this continues.
Yeah, so the community organizers and those on the ground are really going to have a opportunity here in order to strengthen that community. As you said, people, yes, in that video, they looked irate, they looked passionate, but more so it looked like they just want to be heard. So I think, you know, outside in those communities, from the pastors, from some of the community leaders, the ones that got the camera phones in their hands, those are the ones that that probably 2 or 3 leaders that know most of those people need to really galvanize that base, because honestly, this can go into a step 2. This can also go into an unnecessary fall for another African-American male, and I don't want to see it like that, nor should it get like that if we all start to look at our current resources, look at our leaders that's on the grassroots level, and say, listen, you need to step up, you need to speak out, and it needs to be louder now more than ever.
We have seen, of course, stories like this, where when you talk about the issue of protests and police shootings, and that, along with the other story we talked about, the issue of voting, with the subject of a BET documentary that looks at voter suppression, but also stand your ground laws and how they impact black folks. The series focuses on, again, the people who are on the ground making it happen. That is activists, community leaders, you name it, folks who are stepping up. And so there are many folks who have been talking about this new BET docuseries, Finding Justice. Take a look.
Being a person of color in this country, coming out of the womb, you are birthed into a hostile environment.
A 5-year-old girl being handcuffed.
But you're not black. Remember, we only kill black people.
The world has been told to fear and hate the black man.
The advances this country has made is because black people have been willing to die and sacrifice for it.
That's how this country was built.
They trying to put us back in bondage. Being black is not a crime.
Activism is the portal for actually creating change.
Where children suffer from lead poisoning.
The federal government is using people's tax dollars to poison our children and community.
We got to go to the polls and vote like we never voted before.
Growing allegations of voter suppression.
Are you removing black voters just to win this election?
I'm out here fighting for voting rights in 2018.
Why is it okay for you to use your fear as an excuse for murder?
So if racism is the gunpowder, then stand your ground is the match.
Thousands gathering from all over to fight the school-to-prison pipeline.
School is setting you up for the system of jails and prisons.
It is our duty to fight for freedom. It is our duty to win.
I lost years for nothing.
Cash bail ends up putting legally innocent people in cages.
What's happening with police brutality in Minneapolis is happening across the country.
We deserve justice. Our lives matter too.
Every day we wake up, black folks should be fighting for the freedom of black people.
We become remarkable when we fight for justice.
I'm past pissed off. I'm in action mode right now.
All right, folks, one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter is Patrisse Cullors. She joins us right now. Patrisse, how you doing?
Good, thanks for having me.
So BT is doing this. It's going to be over 6 nights, and it's laying out, obviously, what we've had to deal with and how we're trying to address it. But the issue still goes the next step. One of the things that I always talk about is that what we don't do when we talk about Dr. King, the civil rights movement, they were always about the march or the event, but they also said, what are we going to do on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday?
That's why I love this docuseries, actually. And I'm both a subject in the docuseries and also a consulting producer, and work closely with Dream Hampton, who's executive producer on this, or one of the executive producers, to have a conversation that wasn't just about what Black people are dealing with, the trauma that we face, the impact that systems have on us, but also we wanted to talk about the people who are at the center of changing that. And we wanted people to see how organizers every single day are not just protesting, not just on social media, but developing entire campaigns that are transforming local government, national government, and statewide government.
And the piece that when I travel around this country, I mean, literally, I've been hearing from people in Sacramento. They've been saying, you know, Roland, we need you to come here. And I go, no, you don't. and I told them, I said, no, you don't. I said, I'm not saying I don't care. I said, but this is where you live there. I just got back from Atlanta. You know, I had my school choice town hall there. And I said, people, you live in Atlanta. I said, yes, we had it here. I said, but you have to care about the education of your kids here and not wait for a high-profile person, a celebrity, to come in to bring you together and say, here's the plan, now go forth.
That's exactly right. When we started Black Lives Matter almost 5.5 years ago, 6 years ago, we weren't celebrity activists. No one knew our names, but we knew that there was a problem, and we knew we needed to amplify the issue and show people that there's something we could do about it. I appreciate that your response is, no, you don't need me, because we don't need messiahs. We need collective action. What's happening in Sacramento, I'm so grateful for both the local chapter, BLM Sacramento, but also all the other organizations and just regular people who are saying enough is enough. We're not going to allow Sacramento to be the sleepy town. You know, Sacramento is like the Midwest of California. We are going to, you know, challenge and push the local government. And the fact that it's been a year later and they're still protesting and they're still showing up. And honestly, they've been on the front lines of challenging that DA for a very long time. So the next step, as you were saying earlier, is to get her out. She needs to know that she could be voted out.
Fatima, Joseph, question?
Yeah, I'd like to know what you think the next step is going to look like in Sacramento. Are we talking like voter registration drives? Is it, you know, continued protests? What does it look like on the ground, do you think?
We need all of it. I think we need continued protest, especially like towns like Sacramento that are not used to people, you know, showing up and going to city council meetings and turning up. So we need that activation. That's very important. We also need to have a long-term vision around getting a progressive DA that can hold space at local government and can change the way Sacramento is relating to police violence, is relating to crime in the community, is relating to bail. So the issue around the DA is huge. The local chapter there has also done a lot of work around challenging the sheriff and the sheriff's department, who's incredibly racist. The jail system there has been terrible to Black and brown people. So there's a lot of work around the criminal justice system that is going to continue under the leadership of many organizations.
Well, hi, Patrice. I was just going to say, I mean, so it is local activation and local activism that's so inspiring, but Sacramento reminds you of so many cities around this country. And so the ability with this documentary to tell the story that it's Sacramento, but it's not Sacramento just on its own, seems to me to be so powerful. That connecting it again, as you guys have done so beautifully with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, and what you all are going to notice in this docuseries is we try to really look at the different intersections of Black poverty in particular. So we're not just talking about police violence. What you'll end up seeing is, you know, there's a whole episode on toxic cities and lead in our communities. There's an episode on the school to prison pipeline. So young people and what they're doing to challenge, you know, policing in their schools and over policing. So you get to see the full gamut of Black life. And you also get to, we rarely highlight the power players that are organizers in real time. It takes, a documentary 20, 30 years from now to tell that story. We get to see the people who are mostly Black women, to be honest with you, who are showing up every single day and changing the material conditions for Black people.
All right, so we know this is going to premiere Sunday. What time Sunday?
7 p.m. Eastern time. 8 p.m. Eastern time.
8 p.m. Eastern on BET. Patrice Cullors, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Today we saw this video of an Arkansas state lawmaker who let her colleagues have it over the issue of stand your ground. This was a committee hearing, and Stephanie Flowers, state senator in Arkansas, she spoke for a whole bunch of Black folks. Press play.
And it doesn't take much to look on the local news every night and see how many Black kids, Black boys, Black men are being killed with these stand your ground defenses that these people raise, and they get off. So I take issue with that. I'm the only person here of color, okay? I am a mother too, and I have a son. And I care as much for my son as y'all care for y'all's. But my son doesn't walk the same path as yours does. So this debate deserves more time. I'm in Pine Bluff. We have killings regularly down there. That for a long time since I've been back here in Arkansas, I have feared for my son's life. Now he's 27, he's out of Arkansas. And I thank God he is. When you're bringing up crap like this, it offends me. And then to limit the debate too, this is crazy. You don't have to worry about your children, Will. I worry about my son. And I worry about other little Black boys and girls. And people coming into my neighborhood, into my city, saying they got open carry rights, walking down in front of my doggone office in front of the courthouse. That's a bully. Do I have a right to stand my ground with some crazy-ass person walking around with a doggone gun? I don't know what the hell he intends to do. But I know I am scared. I feel threatened. Just like some of y'all walking around here up in the legislature with these damn guns. That, what's his name, Garner came in here, walking around here with a damn gun under his coat. You can see the damn print.
Senator, you need to stop.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't. What the hell are you gonna do? Shoot me?
Senator.
Senator shit. Go to hell. I'm telling you, this deserves more attention. You want to come up here with all these little NRA bills and bills that Alec have and all that stuff. I'm talking about my son's life. And I'm talking about the lives of other Black kids. Do what the hell you want to do. Go ahead, but you can't silence me. You got your damn silence gun out the damn chamber today, but you are not going to silence me.
That's a Black woman, Fatima.
Look, this is what it looks like when Black women are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And
like when he told her to calm down.
Listen, she was naming names. She was not about to calm down. And you felt her pain as a Black mother, as a Black woman. And why is she the only Black woman? I don't know how large that body is, but why is she the only Black woman there? And that tells you everything.
Joseph, it failed the committee 4-3. The sponsor said he's going to bring it back up. But she let him have it.
Oh, absolutely, with both barrels, to torture the analogy, and deservedly so. I mean, these open carry laws are sweeping across the Southeast. They're sweeping across the United States by extension, and it is jeopardizing not only Black people, but white people as well. It's crazy.
And look, Teresa, we know in states where they have stand your ground, more folks are being killed. And so these bills are literally encouraging people to fire away.
One, Senator Flowers was spot on. I wish that there were more elected officials like her today in every municipal and every federal office, possibly at a younger age, but I think I'm pushing the mark right now. But yeah, she was totally right with the open carry laws. And I think a lot of times, you know, when we talk about these laws, we're not necessarily, we're talking about the protection, but we're not talking about what it makes us feel as African Americans. And as African Americans, yes, we might not show, because we are strong, but we might not show fear. But yes, we do feel fear. We feel the same fear when police are, you know, just walking up to the car and they're asking us for license and registration. We got to make sure we move slowly to the glove compartment. So there's a lot of areas of aspects of reform that absolutely need to happen. But Senator Flowers was spot on with her passion, with her love for her county, but also the love for her son. And I think, you know, sitting in that position, I think legislators actually have that thought process of, you know, I'm making all these changes, you bringing all these bills to my table, but what are we actually doing to protect my people that I sit here and I am partially representing as a Black woman?
Last point here. If you don't understand why Black representation matters, that is Exhibit A.
It all ties in together. I mean, piece by piece, you have to vote. You have to vote to make a difference, to get federal judges out. You have to vote to make a difference, to get more legislatures like her in. And you have to vote in order to get police and district attorneys, you know, to understand what's really going on in the community. Absolutely. All right, then, folks. First of all, if you want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, do so by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give goes to support this show, for us to be able to cover the stories that we do. Shout out, of course, to thank you, Joseph, Fatima, Teresa, but also Scott Bolden, who are here. Look, we have conversations that other folks do not have, of course, in our own unique way as well. And so, again, RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, and so certainly support what we do right now. Of course, we always end the show every Friday showing you, of course, all the folks who are donors to our show. Also, Friendship Public Schools. I'm going to see y'all for your Teacher of the Year event tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be live streaming it. This is the 6th consecutive year I've hosted their event, where they put on the big gala here in D.C. Friendship Public Charter Schools is the largest Black-run charter network in the country, and they have a major event for their Teacher of the Year event where they celebrate them, and we'll be live streaming that this weekend. So I shall see you guys on Monday. Here, of course, are our donors. I thank you so much for giving to make this show possible. More of you need to be giving. Cash App, Square, PayPal, doesn't matter. $5, $50, $100 does not matter. We want folks that people have given monthly. Some people give once a year to make this possible, because, again, we've got to fund our freedom to control our narrative. Holla!
You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.